Hello, and Feedstuffs 365 and National Hog Farmer. I'm Ann Hess. Pork producers and industry stakeholders agree that demand needs to be the industry's top priority. Thus, the National Pork Board is investing significantly in growing demand and launching a new consumer campaign this spring to ensure pork remains relevant and desirable in the marketplace. Joining us today to talk about the Checkoff's most recent work to build a bigger appetite for pork here at home is Dr. David Newman, Senior Vice President for Market Growth at the National Pork Board, and Jesse Heimer, a National Pork Board member and Missouri pork producer. Welcome to you both, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Good morning, Ann. Thanks.
Before we jump into today's discussion, I'd like to remind the audience tuning in, you can post your questions there at any time in the chat, or if you're tuning in via social media, you can post those there in the comments. So, David, let's kick it off with you at Pork Forum 2024. You spoke to delegates about a strategy for making pork more relatable and relevant to consumers. But before that, at Expo, National Pork Board launched consumer segments to fish where the fish are in digital media. Tell us more about this journey from research and insights into action.
Sure. Well, again, thanks for having me. And referencing back to 2024 and really what led us up to where we are today, this is all about demand. And at the 2024 National Pork Forum last year, our producers ranked their priorities for the National Pork Board. The number one priority being domestic demand, and the number two being international demand. So as we've seen that international demand continue to be very strong in both volume and value, we're really shifting that same type of focus into what we're doing domestically to drive a significant amount of product, 20 billion pounds a year, which is about 70% of our total production. So this is about focusing on demand. It's about focusing also on the checkoff dollars, the investment our producers have made, and really leveraging the data that we have. And that, Ann, is what you just spoke about, is the consumer segmentation work. And whenever we really took a deep dive after some challenging years in the pork business, we wanted to make sure that this approach was very strategic. And so we embarked on a consumer segmentation project that we call Consumer Connect, which is a groundbreaking tool, something that we've never had before internally at the National Pork Board, literally a business intelligence unit to help us identify who are the future consumers of pork, who are the existing consumers of pork, and how do we need to strategically think about repositioning the brand itself and focusing on the long-term success for the 60,000 people that we represent, who really only make one thing. At the end of the day, they make pork products. And so this is about promoting those products domestically with the same vigor, if you will, that we have done in the international marketplace.
So speaking of data, Jesse, based on this latest research, what are the key learnings about these consumers?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is the consumers that we need to go after. They view pork very differently than the consumers who have kept pork at a level for a very long time. And it's easy, it's very relatable when you think about the way your parents might have viewed pork versus the way you or your kids view pork today. And it's really a generational shift. The baby boomers propped up pork consumption for many, many years, and the younger consumers view pork differently. They don't view pork necessarily in the center of the plate. They view pork more as an ingredient. And they make their decisions based on taste and flavor. Nutrition is obviously a big part of the way they view protein, and they want convenience. And we know that pork can deliver on all three of those, and we've just got to explain it better. We have to reposition pork to be that protein of choice for that consumer. And that doesn't mean that baby boomers won't still buy pork, and it doesn't mean that our parents won't still view pork as the center of the plate. But the consumer that we need, the consumer where there's growth opportunity, that's a consumer that views pork differently, and we know that because of the data. We know that because of Consumer Connect. As David mentioned, we have more data than we've ever had, and I think it's belief in that data that gives us the confidence to move forward with a push like this.
Yeah, and I would just add, and when you think about a lot of these things in a nutshell, this is, as Jesse just pointed out, and this is really important, is that this is something we have not done before, where we manage the brand strategy, we manage the data internally ourselves. And this is truly about reimagining pork. And if there's only one takeaway that anybody could get from this conversation, it's that this is a long-term strategy. And so we're celebrating our 40th year since the Pork Act and Order was passed in 1985 that established the checkoff. This is our 40th year. And the way I typically position this is, we don't raise pigs the way we raised them 40 years ago. Our consumer is radically different than they were 40 years ago. And if we're going to really think about how we position pork moving forward, we need to be able to be nimble and be willing to change, and to think about the fact that we are driving to those consumers Jesse just mentioned, to understand who they are, how they think, how they want to shop, and also how versatile and flavorful pork is. So this is a very consumer-focused process moving forward.
As we talk about this long-term program, Jesse, how is the Pork Checkoff reimagining pork in the marketplace?
Well, I think, we can use the word reimagine, but I think it's also important to point out that, the younger generation, they're consuming pork. And in many cases, they're probably not even aware that the pepperoni on their pizza that they just crave 2, 3, 4 times a week is pork. We know that they love bacon. We know that they love prosciutto. We know they love a lot of the processed pork products that are very popular in the marketplace. And effectively, we're going to use that popularity to pull more pork through the system. And, I guess the clever way to say it, we're going whole hog here. We're going to talk about the entire pig, the entire hog. We're going to talk about fresh and processed. And I think, in this sense, where we really need to work harder is in the fresh side of things with that younger generation. And a lot of that has to do with their lack of knowledge on how to cook it. They're not really sure what to do with a fresh piece of pork. And forgive me for referencing my parents once again, but our parents, they knew what to do with the pork chop. They knew what to do with fresh pork. And my contemporaries and those younger than me, they're not really sure what to do with that fresh pork in the meat case. They're used to something more convenient. They're more familiar with cooking other proteins, but they do crave taste and flavor. And we know that for fact. And that's something that pork can deliver on. And as we reimagine pork in that space, we really have to highlight the taste and flavor and stay focused on the convenience and stay focused on the versatility of our product, because that's what that younger consumer craves. That's what they're comfortable with. That's what they're used to. That's what they're looking for. And we just really haven't ever positioned pork in that facet. So, the big push here is to put pork in a position where that younger consumer will gravitate to our product. And as David mentioned, we're reimagining this in a way that's never been done before in the 40-year history of our checkoff. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done to get to this point. I came into this conversation much later than David. As a newer member of the board, I really wasn't aware of a lot of this research that's happened the last couple of years. I mean, these are things that happen sort of back office. People don't really brag about their business intelligence until it gives them a position of leverage. And today, because of the business intelligence and because of the consumer connect data, we're in a position to really be focused in this effort. I know that our producers and those that pay checkoff, they're continually concerned with how their dollars are spent, and rightfully so. And I can say with confidence that these dollars are spent in a targeted, focused approach that's never been done before in the history of the checkoff.
And I would just add to say it's an exciting time. It's really exciting to think about what Jesse just spoke to, that here in May, we're getting ready to roll out an entirely new tagline. And it's important to say that it's more than just a tagline. It's a brand strategy. It's a campaign that is actually focused on all of these things we've been discussing. So our new marketing campaign, and for the last year, we literally started this launch only a year ago, and here we are ready to unveil this new tagline. And it's really important, and it's kind of the moment where you say, why are we excited? But more importantly, what is the tagline? And the new tagline is actually taste what pork can do. And I encourage anyone to think about that and say that over and over again when you think about it, because it's not easy to launch a new strategy or a new tagline. But what's important there is that Jesse mentioned the non-negotiables with consumers: taste and flavor, versatility, human nutrition. Those are very important. And this new tagline lends to that. It's talking about taste. That hits what they want. When you say taste what pork can do, that means it's more than just breakfast. It's more than just a Christmas ham or an Easter ham. It's more than an occasional barbecue. Rather, it plays across numerous day parts, and this moves us across numerous meals. So when you think about taste what it can do, this is moving from that center of the plate, as Jesse said, we're still focused on, but into cuisines that Gen Zs and millennials think about. When they think about food, they often don't think about an individual cut. Rather, they think about, let's have Mexican, let's have Asian, let's have Italian. And by the way, when you think about those dishes I just mentioned, if you're having authentic Mexican, an authentic Asian, an authentic Italian, pork is at the center of that, because we still are the number one consumed protein in the world. It's here domestically in the US that we've got to remind our consumers how good pork is, how versatile it is, how good it is for you, and celebrate that unapologetically. And the unapologetically piece is important, because you'll notice we've never had a tagline that actually had the word pork in it. And that wasn't done by producers. It wasn't done by our marketing team. The consumer testing on the tagline by far and away exceeded any other tagline we tested to really plant a flag for that unapologetic position. When you see that tagline, you can't confuse it with anything else. It's taste what pork can do.
Yeah, to follow up on that, it makes sense, because I remember the campaign, The Other White Meat, and there was that pork wasn't really involved in that. But I did like Jesse's The Whole Hog. I almost thought you were going to tell us that was the new tagline. But I want to ask you both, and I'll start with Jesse. How is this campaign going to be different from previous major national campaigns?
Well, Ann, I appreciate the question, and I know that producers and everyone up and down the supply chains asking the same question. They have the same concern. I would tell you that David's done a great job of even explaining this to the board, that this isn't only about the brand. This is about the entire pork category. And as we think about the whole hog approach, if you will, and I appreciate your play on that. The category is vast. There's a lot here to talk about. I think in the past there were one of the last campaigns that folks might remember. It was very focused on the baby boomer generation, and it was focused on folks that were already consuming pork. Clearly this one's different, because we're using data, we're using what we know, we're using what we're very sure about, and we're going after a target audience that we really haven't catered to. And I would maintain that this isn't something just unique to pork. This is unique to a lot of consumer products. I've got friends in the wine industry, and the wine industry will tell you the same thing. Hey, we haven't done a good enough job of telling the younger consumer about wine. We haven't done a great job of telling the younger consumer about pork, and we're repositioning pork for the younger consumer, and that's different. That's a different focus than we've had in the last 40 years, and we're excited about it. The pork category, folks up and down the supply chain need this. Our producers need this. And I would tell you the other really different thing here is that we've got a lot of support. The supply chain is very supportive. And when I say that, as a member of the marketing advisory group, we had representation from the packer processors. We had representation from the folks that are in retail and food service. We had representation from the producer level. And it was important to get buy-in from all aspects of the supply chain and get folks on board with this approach, get folks excited about this campaign. I'll give David and his team a lot of credit. They had consensus before we started. They asked for support, and then they've delivered on that. And they've delivered on that support with a promise that we're going to do it differently. And that's already started. I'm excited as a board member. I'm really excited as a producer. And I think more importantly, I'm really excited as a parent of a couple kids in their teenage years, that they're going to see a different look about pork. And if we can empower that generation to view pork, the category of pork, our brand differently, it's a transformational moment for all of us involved.
David, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, one, I think Jesse really nailed it in what he just said. So I think that the whole hog approach, and that you like, that's a very important piece, because something different we've never done to add to that is we've never actually, and when I say we, I mean the National Pork Board itself. This is about aligning a strategy that creates a halo effect with the entire industry. That's packer processors, that's retailers, that's food service companies working together, not being in our own silo. So the whole hog approach means working with both the things we can celebrate around processed. Think about pepperoni, as Jesse mentioned, or bacon or other categories, but it's about reminding them also that there is an amazing opportunity on the fresh side of the business. So that's why we say this whole hog approach. And so this is about getting consumers to recognize pork, to celebrate pork. And you mentioned some of the previous campaigns. We're not the other anything. And this isn't about comparing ourselves to other proteins. This is about celebrating what we know that we can celebrate. We, in the culinary world, as another example, chefs will tell you that they love pork for its versatility. They love for its variety of flavors across numerous categories and day parts. So it's an exciting time for our producers to get fired up. And as I said at our National Pork Industry Forum here in 2025, this is for you. It's not about you. And what I mean by that is this is about the consumer and protecting the long-term strategy for the business. And it's for the producers that we represent.
Yeah, and as we talk about for producers, Jesse, how can they embrace this unapologetic about pork mindset?
As a producer, we often get really hung up in the fact that we raise pigs. I love to tell folks that I'm a pig farmer and that I raise pigs. Far too often, we miss the part that we actually raise pork. And to take that a step further, we actually raise flavor. And as that ties into our campaign, again, as I mentioned, we have a younger producer segment too, folks that are producing pigs and folks that are passionate about the pig business. And if we can empower them to embrace the fact that they also raise flavor, that we're raising a product that ends up in the consumer mindset around taste and flavor. If we can embrace that as a producer group, as an industry, if we can embrace that approach, I think it'll make a difference. I really do. The way we view the business has to change as well. We can't only expect the consumer to adapt and change. We also have to adapt and change, and I think that's a big moment for producers.
And as we're maybe changing from focusing on that baby boomer to a younger consumer, David, it sounds like the Checkoff's laser focus to reach this new consumer. How will this campaign connect with them specifically?
Well, first, just as you probably know, billions of people in this world today do most of their work through a digital approach. So this will be very heavily focused on digital because that's the way all generations shop today. So this will be very targeted. And that's important because that allows us to be more strategic with producer dollars. This isn't about putting up billboards and waiting on people to drive by them. This is about really focusing on those individual consumer groups like Gen Zs or millennials when they're shopping and understanding how they're shopping, helping them build recipes, helping them understand what to add to cart. So when we think about overlapping the data that we have in our segmentation, this will allow us to get very focused. And you mentioned fish where the fish are, which I say all the time. 80% of our consumption in this country is done in 20 states that are not large pork production states. So we've got to think about where the majority of the people are that we can actually move the needle. And moving the needle is important because Jesse and the board of directors has said, we need an ROI here. We need to understand our investment. This can't just look good and feel good. The intention here is to really create a pull-through strategy that impacts supply and therefore can add value for the farmers we represent.
Well, as we wrap up our discussion here, I'd ask both of you any key takeaways you'd like to leave our audience. And Jesse, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I would just follow up with something David just said relative to ROI. I mean, when you think about, the 30% of our pork that's exported right now, and the other 70% that stays here, and you think about the spend and the producer dollars that we're investing in this campaign, it really is about moving that domestic needle and changing the mindset of our consumer to take a little pressure off of our international demand right now. I mean, not that we're avoiding or abandoning our international efforts, not at all. But a focus here domestically, a focus on our consumer that we can see and that we know better than we've ever known, I really think has a chance to change the needle domestically, and that's what we're hoping for. We feel good about this approach. We're excited about it. As a board, we've been very focused on this effort. Certainly, in the last year that I've served, the demand conversation is part of every decision we make right now, and that's because the producer is at top of mind. Our market is at top of mind, and we're very, very excited about this rollout in May. We're going to be just ahead of the grilling season as we all start to think about what the summer months mean to the American people, and how they view the grill and how they view pork as an important part of that summertime grilling. We're excited to be front and center in front of our consumer as we go forward.
David?
Well, I would just say that I'm excited, and I am third generation in the pork business myself, my family. I think producers need something to get excited about, and I think that this is a bit of a rally cry for our business. But the honest truth is, it's not just feel good. This is necessary to prevent ourselves going back to where we were in 2023 as an example. Not a great time for the pork business. So if we can't impact the demand of the only thing we make, that is a crucial step. And I've said this many times, even to you in the past, Ann, but the big reminder and the takeaway for listeners is this: the entire pork business revolves around one theory, that a consumer walks into a retail grocery store and they buy pork, or they go into a restaurant and they buy pork and they cook it and eat it and they like it enough to repeat the process. And if that doesn't happen, it doesn't matter what segment of this business you're in, there's no value, there's no money. So our goal here is to truly follow the act and order, to follow our obligation to promote that product for our producers on behalf of them, and to have fun watching this unfold, watching consumers enjoy it and celebrate it and drive this business for the next 40 years.
Very good. David Newman and Jesse Heimer with the National Pork Board, thank you for joining us today and sharing how the Pork Checkoff is building a bigger appetite for U.S. pork. You can find more information at porkcheckoff.org/email. For you and our audience, we thank you for tuning in today. For more coverage and conversations on pork industry related topics, be sure to check out the live and on-demand section of Feedstuffs 365, as well as National Hog Farmer. For Feedstuffs and National Hog Farmer, I'm Ann Hess.